Peaceful transitions of power are probably the most astounding feature of modern democracies. For centuries, even millennia, we've been changing crowns and transitioning between heads of state following bloody wars and long battles. While the game has changed slightly in terms of political brinksmanship and how much blood gets shed along the way, newly elected presidents still have an uphill battle ahead. The reality is, though presidents are elected on election day, they're not actually inaugurated until January 20th. So we're talking about 73 days in between becoming a president-elect and becoming the newly minted president of the United States. Back in the day, presidents used to get inaugurated in March, not January. And so the problem was Washington was really hard to get to from a lot of different places all over the country. So you had all this time to figure out who you were going to hire, how you were going to get them all to Washington, D.C. You had to get them somewhere to live. You had to find out, how do we feed and pay these people? In many ways, newly minted presidents wage the most complex, hostile corporate takeovers in history. And the reality is that a new president has to appoint over 4,000 political appointees, over 1,000 of which have to be approved by the Senate. We've seen cases in administrations past where you go months and months, sometimes years, without filling political appointed positions. As it stands right now under current legislation, the General Services Administration hands phones, desks, and a calling card essentially to campaigns the day after the nomination. There's some skepticism about whether folks should be picking out office furniture and quote-unquote measuring the drapes before they're actually elected. My argument, and the argument of a great many others, I think, would be that that is probably one of the job requirements no matter what. If folks show up on day one and don't know what they're doing, there is no luxury of the learning curve. Presidential transition teams are primarily about lining up personnel and setting out a policy plan and agenda. The goal of these teams is to think strategically not just about campaigning, but about governing. If campaigning is about earning the support of the electorate, then governing is necessarily marshaling the support of that electorate's representatives in Congress and in managing the public servants and agencies that are part of the executive branch. And that in addition to the very complicated decisions that presidents are forced to make sometimes with respect to everything that comes across their plate. As the old saying goes, the buck stops here. I think if there's one war story that everybody likes to tell, it's that the Clinton administration, in advance of President Bush taking over, popped all the W's off all the keyboards in the White House. That being said, the transition from Bush to Obama was actually an incredibly smooth one. You've got the Clinton and Trump campaigns operating shared office space on two different floors in 1717 Pennsylvania Avenue, down the block from the White House. I think where you're going to see the animosity come from, because everybody has high expectations about it, is immigration reform. It's nowhere near a third rail issue. It's right on the platform. It's the one everybody wants to talk about. And the challenge there, again, becomes what happens with Congress. Congress holds the purse. And so the idea is there's only so much you can do with executive action because policy does cost money. That's part of the reality of American politics. Decisions aren't cheap. And when that's your problem, you have to make peace with the purse holder. So this is one of those conversations where the first 100 days is really going to be about the president's ability to walk up to Congress and say, hey, let's have a constructive conversation and actually get something done. They're going to need a budget pretty quickly after the new president is inaugurated. Whether that happens or we have more continuing resolutions, we'll see. It's a job with a lot of perks. Everybody says they miss Air Force One when they leave. You're the most powerful and also the most weak person in the world because all of your power is contingent on the support of others. That's part of the gig you sign up for. But I know a lot of folks who say this is the worst job in the world. It's stressful. You get old quick. You don't make new friends. And pretty much all the time, everybody experiences this as a president. Pretty much all the time, somebody is disagreeing with you. So it's very hard to please all the people all the time.